Now, figures released this morning show that retail sales in the UK rose at their strongest yearly rate in more than a decade last month. Sales were 7.4% higher than in the same month last year. That's the fastest year-on-year growth since April 2002, according to the Office for National Statistics. Let's talk now to our business correspondent, Maryam Moshiri. Maryam, so first of all, why were sales so strong in October?
Well, a number of reasons. If you look at retail sales figures generally, these ones show us that consumer confidence is still there. It's still very much apparent in Britain, despite everything we've had and all the nervousness post-Brexit. And it's a huge key barometer, if you like, of the wider economic momentum. Now, we had colder weather over the winter. They're saying that that meant that more of us went out and bought winter clothing. Halloween, also a big factor. Apparently, I think it's the second biggest sales event in the country after Christmas.
Really?
Absolutely.
I did not know that.
Well, I'm sure you and I have both been in the supermarket buying pumpkins and whatnot. Many people celebrate Halloween. That's given a boost. So one wonders how Halloween that happens every year can give such a massive boost this year in particular. But that's one of the reasons. Also, internet sales are huge. Compared to the same period last year, we saw internet sales accounting for 15% of total retail sales, compared to just over 12% in the same month last year. The lower pound also, Anita, had a small impact because, of course, the lower pound means British products are cheaper to buy, so more people use them and buy them.
Secondly, what does this mean for the economy generally, Maryam?
Well, it's a difficult one, really, because if you look at the general mood of the economy right now, we've got the economic growth figures showing growth of 0.5% in the third quarter of 2016. That confounded a lot of economic forecasters who predicted a fall, at least a slowdown in growth post-Brexit. Those inflation figures we had on Tuesday showing a fall in inflation. The problem is, though, is this level of spending sustainable? Because the fact is, people are now spending their savings. The latest figures in November show the biggest drop in household savings for 6 months. So people are basically, in effect, breaking their nest eggs to carry on spending. Because one thing that we do see quite often in the UK economy is people spend their way through difficult times. So is this sustainable, especially if, as predicted, inflation rises above 2% and wage growth doesn't rise at the same rate, so it means that we have effectively less money in our pockets?
Interesting question. Maryam, thank you very much. Maryam Moshiri.
Good morning, I'm Maryam Moshiri. In the business news, new plans to reduce the number of claims for whiplash by drivers have been published by the government. They include limits on compensation and cutting legal costs. Insurance have said they'll be able to bring down premiums by £40 a year if the changes are implemented. Royal Mail has reported profits before tax in the 26 weeks ending September have fallen to 110 million from 116 the same period last year. The company has increased its target for cost savings and it reports a small rise in half-year revenues. Royal Mail is now seeking cost savings of around £600 million a year. And the former Shadow Chancellor, Ed Balls, has called for the Bank of England's independence to be curbed in response to growing popular discontent. In an academic paper, he said central banks could sacrifice some political independence without undermining their ability to do the job. A former top bank official said Mr. Balls had raised an important issue. Now, next Wednesday, we hear from Philip Hammond about his plans for tax and spending in his first autumn statement as Chancellor. There's no shortage of speculation, rumour and opinion on what he should do. But what do businesses where you are actually want him to do? Well, what would help them to expand, create new jobs and boost economic growth? All week, we'll take you around the country, speaking to our correspondents based there to find out what firms in their area want from the Chancellor. Today we go to Wales, to Sarah Dickens, who is BBC Wales' economics correspondent, who is there for us now. Sarah.
Well, infrastructure is often held up, isn't it, as the way to really get the economy going. Donald Trump's talking about it, and here in Wales, the Economy Secretary says he wants to build like never before. Well, this is one of the exciting building projects that's going on in the minute. They're right in the middle of it. It's just a 5-mile stretch along the top of where the valleys come together, the valleys of South Wales. 5 miles, but very difficult terrain. It's more than £200 million project. It's taken them 3.5 years, but boy, is it having an effect on communities around here. Bruce Richards is project director. This project really is massive, isn't it, Bruce?
It's a huge project, yeah. It's a massive engineering challenge. We've got 16 major structures to build on the job, along with 12 kilometres of various types of retaining walls. Also, as you see going on in the background, there's 2.5 million tonnes of excavation to be done.
Now, the whole idea of this is to actually speed up the economy of Wales as well, isn't it? To get goods from places like Swansea and Neath into markets in the Midlands. So there's short-term jobs and long-term jobs here.
That's right, yeah, the short-term jobs. To date, we've created about 180 new jobs, and we're also created 52 new apprenticeships in the scheme already.
And in fact, a lot of the people here are local contractors, aren't they?
That's right, yeah. Out of all the subcontractors and suppliers we've let contracts to already, 70% are locally based in South Wales.
Now we can see, can't we, that there's a lot of skilled work here, as long as sort of driving diggers and things like this. So do you know, in terms of the money that you're putting into the economy, it must be huge, isn't it?
It's a huge amount. Like I said, about 70% of what we've spent already on contracts have gone back into the local economy, and that's through local suppliers like Walters UK, who you see doing the earthworks here, smaller companies like GT Jones, who are doing the fencing, site clearance. All that money's going back into the economy locally here.
So what would you like to see as a big construction company from the Chancellor?
From Costain's point of view, we believe that the government understands the importance of investment in infrastructure, and we hope that in the autumn statement that's what the way of thinking will continue.
Now, your company is hoping to get the go-ahead for a new part of the M4 around Newport, £1 billion. That would have a really good impact on your employment levels, wouldn't it?
Absolutely, yeah, and we could then guarantee more continuity of employment from this job down onto the M4, and we just hope that it goes ahead through successful public inquiry.
And that's going to planning inquiry, so we'll have to wait till next year to hear about that. But this is just one of a number of big infrastructure projects that are happening or on the drawing board in Wales. There's plans for a tidal lagoon around Swansea, a new nuclear power station at Wilver in Anglesey, and also that M4 relief road. So everyone here in the construction sector will definitely be watching the Chancellor when he stands up.
They will be indeed. Thank you very much, Sarah Dickens there in South Wales. We're continuing the series tomorrow. We're going to be in Worcestershire. Now, let's take a quick look at some of the other stories making the business headlines. And Majestic Wine has reported a loss before tax of just over £4 million for the 6 months to September. That compares with a profit of just over £4 million in the first half of 2016. Sales were up, though. Group Chief Executive Rowan Gormley said a year ago we laid out a detailed plan to restore the Majestic Group to long-term sustainable growth. Broadband advertising is going to be reviewed after the Advertising Standards Agency found many customers don't understand claims about broadband speeds and often don't know they're unlikely to get the top speed that's advertised. Providers are currently allowed to advertise speeds that are only available in 10% of their customers. And people are snapping up second-hand cars at a rate of knots, according to car industry body, the Society of Motor Manufacturers and Traders. In the third quarter, more than 2 million used cars were sold. That's a new record. Quick look at the markets now. And in terms of financial markets, well, we've seen pound sterling jumping to as high as $1.25 today after data showing British retail sales surged in October. In terms of specific stocks, well, the FTSE is doing very well right now. It's keeping its head in positive territory. Brent crude prices also on the up into positive territory. That's all the business news from me. My colleagues will be back at around 1:45, but for now, back to you.
Thanks, Maryam.